President Trump is vowing to release any still classified documents connected to 3 assassinations that rocked the country and the world back in the 1960s.
We will also reverse the overclassification of government documents, and in the coming days, we are going to make public remaining records relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
All right, so if confirmed, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is set to join the administration as HHS secretary. He has long suggested the CIA played some type of role in his uncle's 1963 assassination in Dallas. It's a claim, though, the agency has long denied. NewsNation's Joe Khalil is following this for us live on Capitol Hill. So, Joe, do we know when we might see these records, if they are, in fact, made public?
Well, President Trump says soon, actually. It was one of the big headlines from his sit-down interview yesterday. He said he committed to declassifying the remaining files that are still not public around the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. He didn't give an exact date or time as to when that would happen, only saying that it was going to be done, in his words, immediately. And then he added that he and his team are still reviewing some of those remaining documents. Now, what's really interesting is part of the interview that he did that's getting some attention today, he revealed that there were some senior members of his first administration that cautioned him and told him not to release these documents. And in at least one instance in that interview, he named names. Take a listen.
I did it with Kennedy to an extent, but I was asked by some of our government officials not to. And, you know, you have to respect them. I was actually asked by Mike Pompeo, who's Secretary of State, not to. And I felt he knew something that maybe, you know, when he asks you not to, you sort of say, why? And he felt that it was just not a good time to release them. And so I didn't release, but I'm going to release them immediately upon getting, we're going to see the information. We're looking at it right now.
So, look, to be clear, there are thousands and thousands of documents relating to this pinpoint in our history here. In 2022, President Biden had authorized about 13,000 records be released. The National Archives did that. A lot of that information that President Biden authorized dealt with Lee Harvey Oswald, Kennedy's killer, the assassin there. The National Archives says that so far about 98% of all of the records and documents have already been released, but that 2% that still is not declassified or hasn't been fully redacted, still about 4,000 or so documents. So to this day, obviously, the Kennedy assassination still remains, you know, a moment in American history that a lot of people have questions about. Several people still feel like we don't know everything there is to know, and that is in part because, although it may be a small sliver, there are still, you know, substantial records, as we said, some 4,000 that have not yet been made public or have been and are almost fully redacted. So we will see maybe in the coming days or so if that is reversed.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, some of those documents came out and, I mean, it's almost all black because it's been redacted. So, Joe, JFK's assassination, not the only one the president referenced. What do we know about any other records that could soon be public?
Yeah, I mean, he's been saying for some time that not just JFK's assassination, but also Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. We still know that there are files related to both of those. So he has thrown those in as well. Now, it's not clear if all of these things are going to be made public all at once, but that is something that President Trump has, at least in the early days of his new administration, committed to doing.
All right, Joe Khalil, live for us there in Washington. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.